are live on Puna Press Live on Twitch. Welcome. One second. Okay. Thank you for joining us. This is show number 7 of LIFEBEAT, Conversations with Purposeful Women. Thank you for being here. I'm your host, Lizzie, and this show is part of Puna Press Live. Puna Press is a publishing press in San Diego, California. I am on their author roster with my book, The Hospice Bubble and Other Devastating Affirmations. Before we get started, I would like to make a personal statement. We are still in this place, a place that America has been in forever, since its inception, really. There are people who should be alive right now who are not, because they were killed by the state. And there are more names than I have time to say, but I will say these 3 names: Dante Wright, Peyton Ham, and Adam Toledo. These are just 3 people who have died by police in the last month. And like I said, there are many others. On top of that, I will also say, please protect yourself from COVID-19. Get your vaccination when it's your turn. Wear a mask. Wash your hands. Social distance. Black Lives Matter. Stop Asian hate. Women's and LGBTQ rights are human rights. Expand voting rights. All of that is to say, don't buy into the delusion of white supremacy. Finally, where I sit now in La Mirada, California, I am on Tonga land. So now I will start with a poem, and then I will introduce our guests for today. This poem is called Murders, Unkindnesses, and Other Winged Things. I've got a thing for birds. Not just any birds, but certain ones. Those steeped in mythology or magic. Ones that signal omens or fate. That said, most birds frighten me. I have only recently begun to enjoy the whoosh of hummingbirds as they dive and swoop toward the feeder in my parents' backyard. Their impossibly fast, tiny wings fluttering like a feeling my heart used to know. But when a hummingbird is still, it's like being let in on a secret. Birds of prey are magnificent. Hawks, falcons, owls, enormous wingspans and mighty talons. Even Zeus chose an eagle as companion. Crows and ravens have enchanted me. Even their collective nouns conjure mystery. A murder of crows, bringers of light and death, godlike and wise, but always up for a good joke. They hold memories of other worlds. Their familiar cause make my mornings. An unkindness of ravens, known to pick on other species as a group if necessary. Highly intelligent, symbols of mind and thoughts straight from the myth of Odin. I have dreams where I fly. I am neither crow nor raven, but the higher I go, the lighter I feel to escape from daily murders and unkindnesses that we know, that we mourn, that we rage against, that don't go away when we close our eyes. All right. So now I will introduce our guests, starting off with Kimberly Dark. Kimberly Dark is a writer, professor, and storyteller working to reveal the hidden architecture of everyday life so that we can reclaim our power as social creators. Her newest book, Damaged Like Me, is available now for pre-order. Find her at KimberlyDark.com. She is currently based in Hawaii. Kendee Eusted is our next guest. And how I know Kendee is as tour manager for Tim Flannery, and also helping out with his Love Harder project. She is also Native American liaison for Caltrans in Northern California, the commissioner and coach for the Junior Giants, and she has a degree in horticulture. She is based in Northern California. And finally, Kristen Cusato is the Director of Communications for the Connecticut chapter of the Alzheimer's Association and a former TV news anchor. She's also a cajon player and has lived on both coasts a few different times. She is based in Connecticut. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start off with the lightning round of questions, I like to say. So I'll say the question, and then I'll call on each of you to give me your answer. So we'll start with Kristen. What is your go-to karaoke song and why?
Oh, wow. Indigo Girls, Closer to Fine.
Okay.
I kind of pull it off, and it's usually with my brother. And I've done it enough times that I'm so, but I also just love the Indigo Girls.
Okay, good one. How about you, Kimberly?
You assume I sing karaoke, but
I do.
I'll go with the one song that I have sung karaoke to, which was "Leader of the Pack."
Oh,
That was a good drunken karaoke song.
as most of them usually are. And Kendee, how about you?
I'm gonna have to echo Kimberly there. I don't do karaoke, but I have been roped into a group, Slightly Intoxicated, spring training. And so, of course, it was Journey's Don't Stop Believing, and then it was followed up by Gangster's Paradise by Coolio.
Nice combo. I like it. I guess my mom always complains that I don't answer the lightning round questions, so I guess I will say mine is Son of a Preacher Man.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's a good song.
I loved it.
So next we'll start with Kimberly. Are you a morning person or a night person?
I guess I'm a morning person. I pretty much go to bed by 9. And also I can feel my brain power evaporating throughout the day now. I think that's an over 50 thing. I'm not, or a postmenopause thing, one or the other. I'm not sure. I can feel it draining away.
Yeah. How about you, Kendee?
Oh, that's easy. I'm a nocturnal insomniac. So I am absolutely a night owl, not necessarily by choice, but it's just what it is. I'm happy to be asleep by 3 or 4 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is great unless I have an 8 a.m. meeting. If I have later,
exactly.
then I can get away with that. But definitely, you can call me at 2 a.m. and 90% of the time I'll answer.
Okay, Kristen, how about you?
Because I've worked all the shifts, I feel like I sometimes had to get up at 2:45, sometimes went to bed at 2:45. It depends. But now I'm enjoying working from home in that I can sleep till 6, 7, or 8, and it doesn't really matter as long as I get to my first meeting at 8:30 or 9. So
yep.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Middle of the day. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm more of a morning person now. I think that has changed. I think, as Kimberly said, as I've gotten older, I've definitely become more of a morning person. I can still stay up late, but I'm more productive in the morning, and I like it. Okay, and last question, we'll start with Kendee. What is your cell phone wallpaper?
A picture of a tidy tip. Picture of a tidy tip that I took last year. That's really, really beautiful.
Ooh, pretty.
Super close up. So, me, I love my flowers and my plants, especially my wildflowers, which are just going off right now here. It's absolutely epically beautiful here.
Cool. And Kristen, how about you?
My mama.
Nice.
Mama's on there. Yep. Lost her 8 years ago. She's still on there.
Yeah. Kimberly?
There's a picture of 2 dancers in leopard outfits getting ready for Carnival in Brazil.
All right.
They're both like airborne in their.
Awesome.
In their
motivating. I like it.
Yeah. My wallpaper is kind of boring right now. I'm doing an Instagram challenge, and so my wallpaper is what the challenges are for each day. So that's it. All right. Thank you so much for indulging me in the lightning round questions. So the first guest I'd like to talk to is Kimberly Dark. Hi, Kimberly. How are you?
Hey, Lizzie, I'm good.
And sorry, before I get started, Kendee and Kristen, you can mute your mics if you want to during this point. Okay. So, Kimberly, you have Damage Like Me coming out. It's your fourth book. Tell us more about it, please.
Yeah, so it's a collection of essays, and for me, essays are memoir style, social analysis, all of that put together, right? So some people refer to this book, and also my last book was called Fat, Pretty, and Soon to Be Old, and it also was a collection of memoir style essays. So some people talk about it as a memoir. Some people talk about it as essays. It's fine with me either way. I feel like the last book was very much focused on how we navigate the daily privileges and depressions of different aspects of our identities related to appearance and other identities. And this next book, Damage Like Me, is still about that, but also adds trauma, childhood trauma in particular, into that mix. So the idea is that, a lot of times the culture seems to believe that when someone has had a traumatic experience or a negative experience or a marginalized experience, that you become like biased about that topic. You become damaged goods. You become broken. And I think that's not actually true. You become knowledgeable in a very specific way about that thing. And of course, when a person is hurt, they need care. But then later, those experiences become a site of wisdom. And so I am putting forth, in addition to each essay having its own message, the overall thesis is that people who have endured trauma or live with marginalized identities should actually be in charge of things, because they have come to know a broader range of how the culture works than, for instance, white men who are often not marginalized really in any way. And so they don't have to notice anything. They might choose to, or they might have, marginalized identities other than gender and race. But wow, like we're in a moment right now where I feel like, I hope people are really starting to notice that, a lot of Black women really have a tremendous amount of skills. That's not accidental. That's the thing I'm talking about, right? Is that having to learn to navigate the culture. So that's just one example, right, of folks who have had to learn to navigate the culture. So that's what the essays are about. But they're still personal and hopefully sometimes funny and touching and all of those things.
Well, yeah, if it's anything like your poetry, which I assume it is, then it definitely is all of those things. So when does it come out?
The book is out in June, and as you mentioned, the publisher already has the book available for pre-sale, akpress.org, and you get 25% off. And I actually love to pre-order things, before they come out, because then you have paid for it. This is how it is for me. I've paid for it and forgot about it. And then all of a sudden, magically, a book appears, and I'm like, wow, and I'm the first to get this. It's like an exciting event because, I forgot all about it. So.
It's true. I have also come to learn the joy of pre-ordering, because it's exactly that. You're like, oh, right, I ordered this 3 months ago. Awesome.
Yeah, and so often I'm like, I really want to get that, and then it just appears in my mail. I've forgotten I already read all about it, and whatever the thing is.
Yeah. So I had a question. Oh, I wanted to mention, for anybody who's watching, if you want to just pop into the chat and say hello, or if you have a question for anybody, please put it in the chat and I will pass it along. So, Kimberly, you also started last year. You started well, it was weekly, but now it's monthly, and it's a thing called the Hope Desk, an online discussion that is free, where you address different topics about social equality. Right? Just tell us a little bit more about that. Why it came to be, how it's going, just what you talk about.
Right.
Let us know.
So the Hope Desk, the Hope Desk came to be because, I'm first of all, I'm a sociologist by training, and I write about social inequalities in a variety of ways. You and I both have poetry books out with Puna Press, in addition to the essays that I write. So I do that in different ways, and I also have spent the last 25 years now, traveling and speaking at colleges and universities about social inequalities as well. So there's a lot of people that have seen me talk live or read things, articles or essays or poems that I've written. And part of what happened this last summer, of course, as many Americans were having a blossoming or reblossoming understanding of social inequality as a result of George Floyd's death and many others, as you mentioned already, too numerous to count. My audience started sending questions that really were about social inequalities that were oftentimes referencing things that I already talk about, but framed by what was happening in the culture at that moment and is still happening at that moment. So it got to the point where, I was answering these usually private messages on social media. It was becoming overwhelming and also so exciting that individuals were connecting social events to what they had experienced in their lives. Places of privilege or places of marginalization in their own lives. And so I started thinking about, wow, the big thread through all of this is I'm not sure how to talk about these things in public conversations because I'm afraid I'll say the wrong thing, or I'm afraid I don't know enough. And so I started thinking, but wait, it's a hopeful thing, right? When people have public discourse, even when they get it wrong, that to me is moving in the right direction. It's a hopeful thing. And so that's part of what made me think of, well, what if I do a thing that's like the Help Desk, but, for social inequality questions. And so you're right. I started out weekly, which of course was overly ambitious. And and handling 2 topics a week, and now I'm doing that monthly. So each episode is 2 topics, and those are coming from people who contact me and ask for certain topics, or conversations I get into where somebody's asking me to explain a thing, right? And the focus is on really sort of backing up and looking at whatever that issue is from a sort of broader perspective so that people develop a contextual understanding. So for instance, I have handled topics such as the model minority myth, the gender pay gap, Black wealth suppression in the United States. So you can see these are kind of broad topics, but they are interrelated in how the culture, politics, and economy work. And so really the aim is, I prepare some notes and I offer some online resources, and I talk and then answer questions. And then I generally end the Hope Desk by asking people, so where do you think you can talk about these things coming up in your own life? And that can be anywhere from your own dinner table with your family or your kids, to people at work, to people at church, to people, at the protest, and I think it's important to encourage people to think about, where will I talk about social inequality? Because this is where we're sort of, like private messaging somebody like me on social media, that is not enough. Reading a book and joining a book group and leaving it there is not enough. Right? Like, we need to have broader discourse, and that's what I'm hoping for. And so some of those, most of them are on YouTube now, the previous episodes. Sometimes the Zoom recording is not kind of strong enough to warrant, they just kind of, we throw those out. But mostly there's a strong enough signal that it makes a good recording. And more people are, looking at those. There are also more trolls looking at those, which is another interesting phenomenon. And it is interesting to hear from people who return to the Hope Desk and are evolving the answers to that question, where can you talk about this? Because honestly, the first 5 of these that I did, there was just silence when I asked that question. There was just sort of like, well, I don't even know. And then the first answers were like, I guess I could talk to my husband tonight at dinner. It was, but so that the answers to that question are evolving as well.
Yeah, I've watched a few of them, and I think they're great, and they're free, people. So get on that. It's the first Tuesday of every month, right, at 3 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah. And the Zoom link is at the bottom of my homepage at KimberlyDark.com. So you just go there and type in your email, you get the Zoom link. It's easy.
Easy. All right. So I have one more question for you, Kimberly. Through the pandemic, you've been able to maintain a relatively busy schedule, even through Zoom, et cetera. And now that we're kind of getting through it a little bit now, I noticed that on your calendar, you're starting to plan for some events out in the wild, in the world, in the universe. So tell us a little bit about that, so, like the CSU Summer Arts and what you're looking forward to about traveling again and getting out there.
Well, actually, there isn't much that's happening out in the world yet.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Well, it's okay. I mean, CSU Summer Arts is I usually talk about summer arts as like the best summer art camp for adults ever, because it feels like 2 weeks of like intensive, like when you go to camp, how everybody's in it together and it's just very intense, and you're taking like you might be taking my writing course, but then concurrently there's dance and theater and animation and all these other music, all these other classes. So Summer Arts is actually online this year though. And so you can join me from anywhere. And the course this year, my course this year, is called Social Action Writing, Creating Internet Content. And so we're focused on short essay, the short essay form, as you see in a lot of internet publications, and also short videos and memes and internet presence, how people do that. And the guest artists are so exciting. Jeffrey Marsh wrote a book called How to Be You, and they're joining us. And then the other 2 are freelance writers who have really, I feel like, mastered this form, this internet essay form, Melissa Fabello and Raquel Reichard. So you can learn about this, CSU Summer Arts, or on my website. But wow, that's still online. And most of what I'm doing still in the fall is still on. I keep thinking, it's about to happen, that somebody wants something in person. And then I'll be like, okay, we're doing that online too. Okay. Which, I have to be honest, after 20 years of being on a plane, like almost, every week or every other week, this last year has been both trying and also a balm. And I'm waiting to see. Like, I would love it if I can travel sometimes, but not as much as I was. Like, a lot of what we have been doing, we can still do online, and I hope we do some of it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Appreciate all the work that you do. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lizzie.
Okay. So I'm going to move to Kendee now. So you can unmute, Kendee. Hi.
Hi.
So I'm going to start with you told me that you are Honey Lake Maidu, right? That's your indigenous tribe, right?
Yep.
So they are an indigenous people of the land now known as California, right? So what can you tell us about the Maidu people?
Well, there are one of the largest tribes in California, but there's multiple different pieces and parts, and the Maidu actually encompass 4 counties. I'm Lassen County Maidu. I'm Honey Lake Maidu from Lassen County, part of the Mountain Maidu. And then there's Plumas County Maidu. There's Butte County Maidu. And then there's also some Maidu that go into like Nevada City. Nevada County. So it's very, very large. I believe there's 3 distinct dialects with it, and even a couple have their different creation stories. You know, that's what's so glorious about tribal nations is them being sovereign nations. They have just the most incredibly beautiful and distinctive languages and traditions and cultures, and history, creation stories, things like that. My creation story is done visually on this really beautiful graphic. HoneyLakeMaidu.com is a website that a cousin of mine kind of put together. It's really beautiful, and it goes through the maker's story, and like where certain rocks and certain mountains and certain rivers and streams were part of that, and it's really, really beautiful. There's also Maidu. Like in Chico, Bidwell Mansion, Chico State is built on top of Machupta Maidu land. They're considered a landless tribe, but they are powerful, and they're amazing, and they do exceptional work down there in Chico. And then obviously I'm super, super lucky and really fortunate to work for the government and do something that matters when it comes to tribes as the tribal liaison for Caltrans. So, and confession, there are times where I think I might know more about other tribes, cultures, and histories and things than my own, which is extremely disappointing to me. But it also is a firelight too for me to, get my crap together and learn as much as I possibly can. I would love to learn my language. I would love all of those things, but it is time and energy, and I know I don't have a lot of the time to get that. My elders are not going to live forever, and I don't have a lot of that stuff concreted. So much of our history is done verbally and through storytelling and things like that. So that's a confession of mine. I'm not going to say it's a failure, but it's not quite. I'm not living up to what I know the universe expects of me when it comes to that. So yeah, but yeah, beautiful, beautiful people, really peaceful people. Also responsible for the first stringed instrument the Maidu tribe was. So, which
nice.
music and me, music based on the earth.
So you talked a little bit about your job. So can you tell us more about what you do for Caltrans and how the state is working to seek more racial equity with the tribes and social and environmental justice? Can you talk more about that?
For sure. Perfect timing. I literally did a presentation today for California Department of Public Health and a resource center on equitable engagement and working with tribal governments. So it's fresh. But I'm not going to bore you with the PowerPoint by any means. Besides, I could just talk about it. It's like you were saying at the beginning, it's so unfortunate that we're still here. We're still in this environment and this space in this country where we are having to talk about why this stuff is important. And that's just mind blowing to me still. And So as far as my job and what I do, I'm responsible for maintaining all the government to government relationships between the DOT up in Northern California and the 23 tribes that I have in those 7 northeastern counties. So just take the upper right hand chunk of the state of California, that's my area. And so I maintain and foster all those relationships as best I can and try to ensure that our tribes are part of our meaningful engagement and meaningful outreach. And I purposely throw the word meaningful in front of every single word: consultation, outreach, engagement, because checkbox agencies, checkbox organizations are so disingenuous, and there's not that authenticity behind it. And Tribe's bullshit meter is spot on. They are spot on. And if you come in there and there's no heart and there's no deliberate intention to form those relationships and really listen to what their needs are, what are their obstacles, what are their challenges, what are their strengths, they will see right through that immediately. And so don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. And I did mention that today to the folks that were registered in the workshop. I was just like, look, if your heart is not in it and you're only doing this because now all of a sudden social and racial equity and environmental justice is a box now that you check, or your agency redid their mission statement. I probably shouldn't be so sarcastic, huh? Like, this wave.
No, you should.
This wave is coming, and I just felt like if I'm going to be able to be on this platform to help people with like what I would consider my best management practices and what works for me, what doesn't work for me, places where I have, how I told you, learning how to do this job well is trial and error, mostly error. And then I just try not to make the same mistake twice. And I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm not afraid at all to be like, hey, I need some help in understanding how we move from here to here. And I've worked really, really hard to build relationships with our tribes, meaningful relationships with our tribes, so that when we get into the weeds and when we get into the sticky stuff, it's not a matter of if a project of Caltrans is going to impact or affect a tribe or their ancestral area or their cultural resources or any of those. It's just a matter of when. And if we don't have the relationship established to work through the sticky stuff, then communication breaks down. And communication is everything. It is absolutely everything. Meaningful communication. One of my favorite quotes is, the problem with communication is the illusion that it happened. So I like to remember that. I do a lot of active listening, so what I heard you say is this, and that type of thing. But when it comes to my department, I do have to give really, really high praise. I've worked for Caltrans for 15 years. I've been the tribal liaison for 12 of those years. This is the first time that I genuinely have optimism. We are trying to do it right and really shift. And this is just one state department. I can tell you my parent agency and the other 7 departments under that parent agency also shifting and moving. And I think for the right reasons too. Like, yeah, it's magnified, and yes, it's very under a lens right now. But like I told people a couple of weeks ago, I was like, if you genuinely do a good job to seek environmental justice and racial and social equality, you don't go backwards. And if you do go backwards, then you did not actually need that. But there might have been an illusion to that, And so that's what I'm really hopeful for, is that we'll create and keep opening up seats at the table. We'll keep opening up respectful lines of communication to have meaningful dialogue, so we can ensure that we are not impacting cultural resources, and that if we are we going to be able to minimize those? And if not, how are we going to mitigate for those? And, thing I love the most about my job is that a lot of people working in government sector don't get to feel like something they did mattered at the end of the day, and I am so fortunate and lucky. It doesn't matter how tiny it is that the tiniest thing actually is more like a pebble, with a ripple effect in my world, and for the tribes. And because I am Native myself, it's still close to my heart. But it also creates massive conflict because my department's not always on the same page I am. And so you got to be willing to ask the hard questions. You have to be willing to not accept no, because a lot of times when it comes to tribes or engaging, historically tribes are seen as obstacles, somebody you have to get through in order to get your project done. And that is not the case at all. They are partners. They are amazing wealths of resource and information and knowledge and local history and current just presence. And their resiliency is just so damn impressive. There's just really no reason why any tribes should still be standing at this point. I mean, you don't have to actually look through the history very deeply, especially California tribes. It's like right when you couldn't think it was worse, we had the mission system come on through to help us, with God. And then right behind that, gold rush. And yet they're so resilient and powerful and amazing and progressive. And they are not just taking care of their tribal communities. They are taking care of their communities who they don't have to be convinced that the whole is as important as the pieces. And I love that. I love that. So it helps me through my rough days.
Those are definitely some amazing lessons and things that a lot of people still need to learn, right?
For sure.
So going to switch gears now a little bit, and if you could talk a little bit about how you came to be the tour manager for Tim Flannery. For those who don't know, Tim Flannery is a former baseball player and coach, and he's also a musician, and he has several albums out, and he tours up and down California. And Kendee kind of runs the whole thing. So talk to us about that.
Yeah. I heard cats. When people are like, what do you do as a tour manager? I'm like, I heard cats. And they all have ADHD. It's so awesome. I absolutely love working for that man, and I absolutely love the Lunatic Fringe. The band, the people that comprise it are just such exceptional people, beautiful souls, and amazingly talented. And oh yeah, they happen to be great musicians. It's like them being exceptional musicians is like the sixth thing on the list, and I'm so lucky for that. But no, I got to. I had met Tim multiple times in my role as a commissioner and coach for Junior Giants at like play ball luncheons or different fundraiser events or whatnot. But just like in that context, where when I stumbled upon him at High Sierra Music Festival and I think 2014 or 15. Oh, it had to be 15 because he was still coaching in 14 because that was our last championship that we had. So it was 2015, and I was walking through camp, and he was like, "Hey, I know you," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm a coach for Junior Giants, blah blah blah, and I've seen your music a couple of times. I've been to a couple of your fundraisers for the Love Harder Project. I'm super interested in the Love Harder Project, and tell me more about that." So we just kind of struck up this conversation in the middle of a music festival, which I thought was really awesome because you would think that Tim and I would have had our connection somewhere else, and not in the middle of Quincy, California, one of the best music festivals there is. And so we just started talking and struck up a conversation there. And then Donna and I also got to meet and connect. His wife, Mission Control, as I call her, she's phenomenal, absolutely the most exceptional women I have ever had the pleasure of meeting. Secretly, I actually work for her, but I tell Tim that I work for him. And he's amazing and such a deep and wise individual, and we both have some of the same ways in which our brains work and the ways in which we react and respond. So we jive really well, and we raise money. We go around and we do shows and we raise money, and all of our post overhead goes into the Love Harder Project, and so where we can support victims of violence and anti-bullying, which all originated from Brian Stowe. The story about Brian Stowe, which his 10-year anniversary of that horrible event was just last week. He threw the first pitch out for this season at
I saw that.
I was a blubbering disaster watching it. I mean, I'm a blubbering disaster anyways most days, but man, that one hit me so hard, and so proud of him. But that is where the Love Harder Project was born. And then music. There's music, there's two things in my life that I seek for immediate reset and immediate comfort. And it is music, live music, and baseball. So as you can imagine, the last 15 months has sucked really hard for me, as it does for most people. But those resources just being stripped away from you overnight, and you're left in solitude to figure it out on your own was great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Speaking of resilience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so, just the last question, real quick. You mentioned Junior Giants. You were inducted into the Hall of Fame of Coaching in 2018. So, tell us about your work with Junior Giants.
Well, the timing of this couldn't be perfect. Our registration today goes live. We are actually going to do in-person play, some leagues around the state. So there's 90 Junior Giants leagues around the state of California. We even go as far up into Medford, Oregon, and over into Nevada a little bit. And it's a free, non-competitive program, baseball and softball program for boys and girls, and it's specifically targeted to our disadvantaged and underserved youth. It's a completely free program, and honestly, it's not as much about baseball as it is about character development. And we have our whole foundational core based around the 4 bases of character development, which is confidence, integrity, leadership, and teamwork. And then we embed a anti-bullying component, a reading and education component, and then a nutrition component. And we just really use the game of baseball to get that message across to them, where these kids are kids that are either cannot afford little league or maybe don't have the confidence to go out there. Again, we don't keep score. It's not competitive. But I try to have them compete with themselves, do better than you did last time. And the happiest I can remember being is on a baseball field with kids. Again, last year sucked. And it really was very indicative of how much my cup gets filled. Even though I'm exhausted, and even though it costs you so much, what you invest and what you give is not what is on my radar screen, because what I'm getting back is so much tenfold. And I think people say that a lot because it sounds good, but last year genuinely made me realize just exactly what I was missing and how much these kids, when you have a kid that has just had an absolute shit stack of a deal dealt to them and have been through some of the hardest stuff by the time they're 8, years old, and you get 10 weeks in the summer to build them up in a way that will hopefully carry them through and have them go out into the community and the world being more confident, more stronger, having somebody believe in them. I remember telling a kid that I was really proud of him, and he said, "What does that mean?" And I had to go into the concession stand and cry for a minute to come back out, compose myself, and explain it. But that stuff is what's happening all over the place. And today we went live, so it's gojrgiants.org. And you can just click on the map and find a location near you. Really, it's amazing. It is a phenomenal program, and I've been a coach. This will be my 15th year as the coach and 10th year as the commissioner. And being inducted into the Hall of Fame was absolutely one of the most mind-blowing things. And Tim Flannery did my intro. He flew down. He
brought it all
introduced me,
together.
which was beautiful and super special.
Well, that's amazing, Kendee. Thank you so much for sharing all the work you're doing. I wish I had more time with everybody, but I'm going to move on to Kristen. So, hi, Kristen.
Hi, Lizzie.
In Connecticut. Thank you so much for being here. We're gonna go back in time first because I want you to talk about your TV news career. Can you tell us how you got into that?
Gosh, sure. I used to write a lot of stories, and talk a lot. Well, I still do. So I thought that I wanted to be a lawyer, and in 11th grade or 10th grade, I did a speech for something at school, and one of my teachers came up and said, "You need to be in broadcasting." I'm like, "Really? Okay, let's check this out." So I ended up going to school for communications and English, and ended up going to TV radio at school, and then I got my first job right out of school, luckily, at a small TV station in New York. Upstate New York, and then I was in Texas, and then I was in Connecticut, and then I was in San Diego, and then I left San Diego, came back to Connecticut, and then San Diego again, Now I'm back in Connecticut, but I'm not on TV anymore. But it was 24 years, and it was really amazing. And since we're being like super brutally honest here, I was really happy to be out of news when a certain person was president recently, because holy cow, I although I should have a super thick skin being a reporter, being made to feel like everything I did was wrong and against people when it was really just to help, and share knowledge and share stories, and just being, I can't imagine being part of that crowd and being told that everything that you're doing is wrong and evil. And so I'm really glad that I was out, that I got out when I got out, frankly.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right. It's that was a rather treacherous time, and I'm hearing some things now at protests that the police are saying that they're not allowing journalists to cover the protests and stuff. So, but thank you for your 24 years of service before that. Um, so, but now you're not, like you said, you're not in TV news or journalism reporting. You switch gears to be involved with the Alzheimer's Association. So, will you tell us kind of how you got into that?
Yeah. So my mother and I were best friends for our whole lives, and I was living in San Diego, working in San Diego, living downtown. I just gotten out of a not happy marriage, and I was living in Little Italy and living up my life and having a great time. And all of a sudden, things were really weird happening. And my mom on the phone, she was in New York, and she would get marbly mouthed, and she would repeat stories. And family was saying she had some falls, and we went to the doctor, and then this diagnosis came of dementia. And we're like, what is not only what is that, but what does this all mean? And goodness, it was just a really quick turnaround. And I remember calling a bunch of my friends to my apartment, 7 or 8 friends, and saying, some of them, Lizzie, Astra, you guys probably know Astra and Barbara. And at that time we were super close, and we all sat down, and I said, hey guys, I love you all to death, but I got to go. And I got to go back. I got to go east. I got to quit my job. I got to leave, and I got to go take care of her, and I got to be with her through this process. So I did 14 boxes and my cat, and came back east and ended up taking care of her, with her through the journey. It was 4 years long. And, it was awful and terrible and beautiful, and changed my whole life. And a couple of years into it, there was a position open actually at the Alzheimer's Association here in Connecticut, and I applied for it. So I switched gears completely. And by that point, I think my mom was already pretty much nonverbal. It goes fast when you are under 65. It's called, younger onset. So she was 61 when she was diagnosed. She died at 65. So a couple of years into it, and she'd already lost ability to walk and talk, etc. And I know, because we're so close, that she provided this second career. She's like, even through my sickness here, here's something else that you can actually do with your life. And I'm like, holy cow. So I did that, and I still do that.
Wow, that is quite a story.
I'm lucky. I feel lucky. I feel really lucky, that I can do, and I do communications. So I really take a lot of those old skills that I have and bring them over, and I do a lot of interviews, and I do a lot, get people ready for media interviews, and share a lot of the messaging that we do and all the different events that we do, which also have been completely, like, you can really completely online. We switched a year plus ago to all online. It's so weird.
Yeah. So you started in Connecticut, but then you moved back to San Diego, right? But also with the Alzheimer's Association, is that right?
Yeah. So I worked for the chapter in San Diego, and then I came back here. I just felt that I was more East Coast than West Coast. I don't know why. It just happened.
So tell us more about what you do for them now as communications director.
So I'm a lot of the front facing stuff. So a lot of we had an advocacy day, and I was helping to MC that, and helping to put together a big education conference we have online. So we teach people who are just interested in the disease, what it's about. We teach what are the 10 signs. We teach a little further on in the disease, so how to effectively communicate, because I really look at it as a different language when you're talking with someone who has dementia, because you have to go into their reality and you have to realize you don't argue and you keep sentences simple and you really do it, looking at them and at their level. And there's all these different tricks that make communicating a lot easier. And they have to learn how to validate them and redirect them so that you reduce their anxiety and your anxiety as a caregiver. We do a lot of things for caregivers, a lot of support groups, a lot of classes, care consultations, and a lot of, I'm in charge of messaging, right? So getting it out there through the media, but also through our social media channels, which we have to really rely on pretty strongly. And it's at ALZCT if anyone wants to follow it. It's our Alzheimer's Association Connecticut chapter here. And, we're under a national umbrella. So the Alzheimer's Association, is national, and there are about 80 chapters. So we're the Connecticut chapter. And I also have a job that's called Research Liaison. And there are about 30 of us across the country. And we learn about the research that we fund as the Alzheimer's Association and connect with the researchers in our region and then share with other people. It's almost like sharing where the money goes, right? So you raise the money. We're a nonprofit, right? So all those classes and everything I just talked about are free. And then we raise money for not only those classes, but also to further research. So it's pretty fascinating. And it's also interesting that I'm doing it considering the fact that I didn't do well in chemistry or biology or physics or any of the sciences. But I find it really interesting and I'm learning a lot. So
Yeah. All right, that's awesome. So one last question for you, and it's also kind of a different direction, is because you're also a musician. You play cajon, and I see your little djembe back there behind you. So tell us a little bit about your music career.
Oh my gosh, it's on hold right now, but I loved it. Thank you for calling me a musician. I actually just keep a beat. That's kind of pretty much what I do. I played drums in high school, and then I didn't do anything until, I started playing a little bit with my brother. He's a singer-songwriter as well as an architect. And then when I went to San Diego the second time, Catherine Beeks is like, play. Let's bang around and see what we can do. And I was in a band with her, Calamity. And then I was also in a band with Marsha Clare with a couple other fellows called Sons of Eden. And we played the House of Blues. I mean, I've never thought about doing anything like this. It was just so amazing. And we also got to play the Casbah. They did like a bluegrass night at the Casbah. There were 12 people there, and most of them were people who were on stage after us or before us. But we got to play the Casbah. It was the coolest thing in the world. So it was great.
Awesome.
So it's on hold now, but I'd love to be able to, play if we ever start playing out live again, which I hope sometimes happens. Maybe in some driveway or something. But
all
I'm
right.
really impressed with you ladies and all you're doing to help people in the world. And I'm really impressed with your stories. And thank you for all you guys do, all of you.
Yes, here. So that's gonna be the end of our show. I just want to give everybody one last chance to just tell me if there's any final thing you'd like to share. And let's start with you, Kristen.
Okay. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm doing kind of something a little bit like this, but it's like the poor man's. I'm doing Instagram lives every Sunday with interesting people who I know. And I'm just doing them. It's at Cusato K, CUSATOK. And that's my Instagram handle. And I'd love to even talk to you guys if you can be my future guests.
Okay, great. Thanks. How about you, Kendee?
Closing thoughts, huh? Gosh, I don't know. Just, I will just to tack onto the music thing because I loved how you lit up when she said that. Like your whole, it's like you were excited before, and then like I saw it in you, and I was just like, and you nodded when she mentioned Tim Flannery. So I was like, oh wait, has she seen? Does she know? Like, And I will have to say that the absence of live music has been more devastating than I could have ever wrapped my head around, and it is one of my like cornerstone foundations. And I just for the first time last weekend got to see my first live music in 15 months. It was Willie T. Taylor, and if you're not familiar with him, he's incredible. And it was all two things happened for me. First, it's been a really rough 15 months that I know everybody else is going through as well, but really, really dark and really, really the biggest, hardest struggle of my entire 43 years. And I felt my cup fill just a little bit. And even though it was socially distanced and everybody's in masks and you were still reminded of this shit show that we're currently navigating, I will tell you this, hearing him, feeling him, seeing friends gather, seeing that I had really for the last 15 months just had to put to the side and not, and just pretend like I didn't know when it was ever going to come back and not put my eggs in that basket that it ever would. It was the first time I felt optimism in 15 months. It was the first time that the light at the end of the tunnel was not a freight train. And I'm not like out of the woods by any means, but I can tell you I didn't understand what a lack of optimism and hope for that amount of duration felt like until I saw just the snippet of it. So that's what I'll leave with is I hope live music comes back, and I hope we safely do it because the industry is suffering so tremendously. So save our stages. There's so many other, there's, you know, assembly bills, there's all kinds of stuff. Support live music, because if the last year has taught us anything, arts, creative, is life-saving. What would you do without the books and the art and the music and the TV shows and the movies and what would you have done? So preserve that. That's what I would say.
Great. Thank you, Kendee. How about you, Kimberly? One final thing.
I appreciate what Kendee just said about this last 15 months. I'm hoping that this last 15 months and whatever was the most painful absence, like you're talking about music, whatever that thing is, makes us realize the world that we want to create, right, from here forth. Because this is, you know, I go around telling people all the time that there's, you know, we're creating the world even as it creates us, right? There's no human culture except that humans make it. We're the ones doing this. But wow, there is an opportunity here if we really pay attention to what did we lack, and to make more of that, and to realize what a tremendous gift we have been given in other human beings, and to you know, start looking upon every person, even the ones we were taught to dislike, even the bodies we were taught were ugly, even the people we were taught were not good, to look upon everyone with a sense of joy and love, and, you know, to feel the humanity in others. I hope that that's the thing that we've got coming forward as we realize what we missed. So
Great. Thank you. Very well said, Kimberly. So I'd like to thank my guests. Again, Kimberly Dark, Kendee Eusted, and Kristen Cusato. The next show will be on July 15th with guests to be announced. I haven't booked anybody yet, but keep a watch on Facebook for the announcement and everything. So thanks again for being here. Take care of yourselves, and good night. Thanks.
Thank you, Lizzie. Thank you, Kimberly and Kristen.
Yes,
You guys
thank you all.
I feel